Daniel walked through the crowded marketplace, his steps quick and quiet, blending into the busy crowd of aliens that surrounded him. The planet was strange, full of alien species and customs he couldn't begin to understand. His hand, wrapped tightly in cloth, rested at his side, the scar hidden from view. He had been on the run for weeks now, moving from one system to another, always staying one step ahead. The mark on his hand was a secret he couldn't afford to reveal. The scar was his curse. He knew what it meant, even if no one else did. The marketplace was loud with chatter and the smell of strange foods wafting through the air. Strange fruits and glowing, colorful plants were displayed on every stall, but Daniel had no interest in them. His mind was focused on the one thing that kept him moving, staying alive. He couldn't let anyone find him. Not now, not ever. He couldn't explain the scar, and he didn't want to try. But then something changed. A voice, soft but clear, cut through the noise, sending a chill down his spine. "I've been searching for you, human." Daniel froze. The voice was calm, but there was something in it, something urgent. He turned his head slowly, not sure if he had heard right. Alien standing in front of him was beautiful, unlike anyone he had seen before. Her skin shimmered in shades of pale lavender, and her violet eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made him feel like she could see right through him. She was young, probably not older than him, but there was an air of confidence about her that made him uneasy. Her long, silvery hair flowed around her face, and she was dressed in a sleek, form-fitting outfit that seemed to shift in the light. She stepped closer to him, her eyes never leaving his hand. His heart skipped a beat as he instinctively tightened his grip on the cloth around his wrist. She noticed her gaze flickered from his hand to his face, and Daniel could feel the weight of her stare. She knew she had to know what he was hiding. "You've been searching for me?" Daniel managed to say, his voice low and cautious. The woman didn't answer at first. Instead, she reached out, her delicate fingers brushing against his wrist, almost like she was testing him. His body tensed at the contact, and his mind raced. Should he pull away? Should he run? But her touch was gentle, almost curious. And then, just as quickly, she pulled her hand back, her lips parting in a soft gasp. You, ... You carry the mark," she whispered, as though confirming a truth she had already known. Daniel's blood ran cold. No one was supposed to know about the mark. No one except the ones who hunted it. But here she was, standing in front of him, looking at him as though she had just discovered a hidden treasure. She was no stranger to the scar. The marketplace around them continued as though nothing had happened. But for Daniel, everything stopped. The noise of the crowd, the lights, the strange smells, it all faded away. He was frozen, caught in her gaze, his hand still hidden beneath the cloth. She knew, and it terrified him. "You're one of them, aren't you?" Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. She tilted her head slightly, confusion flickering in her eyes. "One of who?" "The ones who come after me," he said quickly, trying to hide the panic in his voice. "The syndicate. The ones who want the scar." A small smile tugged at the corner of her lips, but it wasn't a cruel smile. It was almost ... reassuring. "I'm not with them," she said softly. "I'm here to help you." Her words didn't make sense. How could she help him? How could anyone help him now? The scar was a death sentence, and he had known it the moment it appeared on his hand. He had hoped he could outrun it, outrun them all. But this woman, this alien, had seen through him, and he knew there was no escaping that. "I don't need help," Daniel said, shaking his head. "You don't understand what this is, what it means." "I do understand," she said, her voice steady. "More than you think." She took a step closer, her eyes softening. "I've been searching for you because you are the one who can end this war. The words hit him like a physical blow. End the war? What was she talking about? A scar? She continued, her eyes glancing at his hand again. It's not just a mark, it's a key. Daniel blinked. A key. She nodded. A key to the Gate of Echoes. A weapon so powerful it could end the war. But only the one marked with the crest of Orith can open it. Only you. Daniel felt his knees weaken. The Gate of Echoes. He had heard whispers about it, rumors in the darker corners of space. But he had never imagined that the mark on his hand, the scar, could be linked to something like that. He shook his head again, trying to clear the fog in his mind. I don't want to be part of this. I just want to be left alone. I know, she said quietly, but you don't get to choose that anymore. You've been chosen, whether you like it or not. Daniel didn't know what to say. His mind raced with questions, but the most pressing one remained. What did it all mean for him? And more importantly, what would happen next? The woman stepped closer, reaching out to gently touch the cloth around his hand. Her fingers lingered there for a moment, and Daniel could feel the warmth of her touch, the connection between them growing stronger. I am Serenia, she said softly. And you're not alone anymore, human. You never will be again. Daniel stood frozen, his heart racing as Serenia's words echoed in his mind. You're the one who can end this war. It didn't make sense. He was just a soldier, a survivor of a battle that had nearly torn his life apart. A man with a scar that should have been forgotten, buried with the rest of his past. But Serenia's gaze told him everything had changed. The scar on his hand wasn't just a memory. It was the key to something far bigger than he could understand. End the war, he repeated, his voice shaky. He couldn't hide the confusion that gripped him. How? I'm just a man. I'm not some hero you're looking for. Serenia's eyes softened, her expression filled with something between pity and determination. You don't have to be a hero, Daniel. You're the chosen one, whether you like it or not. The Oracle chose you, and now we all have to follow where the mark leads. Daniel stepped back, his mind spinning. He wanted to walk away, to tell her it was all nonsense. But the truth was, deep down, he knew there was something about the scar that went beyond coincidence. The way it burned when danger was near. The strange feeling when he had used it to fight back at Redwater. This wasn't just a random mark. It was a call to action. Serenia must have seen his hesitation because she reached out and placed a gentle hand on his arm. I know this is overwhelming, she said softly. But you must understand your bloodline, your mark. It's part of a prophecy that goes back thousands of years. The Gate of Echoes is real, and it holds the power to end the war between my people and the Syndicate. But only the one marked with the crest of Orith can unlock it. Daniel stared at her, unsure of what to say. The idea of being part of some ancient prophecy seemed impossible. He was just a man, running from a past he wanted to forget. But Serenia's calm demeanor and unwavering belief in him made him wonder what if there was some truth to it. The Gate of Echoes, he murmured. What is it? And why do I have this scar? Serenia's expression grew serious. The gate is an ancient relic, built by the first rulers of my people. It holds a weapon of unimaginable power, one that could either save us all or destroy everything. But the Syndicate, they've been trying to open it for years, and they will stop at nothing to control it. Your scar, Daniel, it's the key to unlocking the gate's power. Without it, the Syndicate will take everything. A cold chill ran down his spine. The Syndicate, a ruthless group of mercenaries and warlords, would do anything to get their hands on something like that. And if they were after the gate, it meant they had already learned about the mark, about the scar. They knew about him. I can't. Daniel began, but Serenia shook her head. You don't have a choice, she said quietly. her eyes filled with regret. "The war has already begun, and you're already part of it. Whether you want to be or not," he clenched, his fists trying to push away the feeling of being trapped. "So what am I supposed to do? I don't even know how to use this mark." I've never even before he could finish. The sound of distant engines reached their ears. The hum of the syndicate ships. Serenia's eyes narrowed. "They're here," she said, her voice low. "We don't have much time." The marketplace, which had once felt like a safe haven, now felt suffocating. The crowd had dispersed, but the tension in the air was palpable. Daniel's heart raced as he followed Serenia through narrow alleys, her movements swift and precise. She led him to a hidden corner where a small, sleek ship waited, its engines humming softly. "We have to get to the gate," Serenia said urgently. "Once we reach the coordinates, you'll be able to use the mark. The gate won't open without it." Daniel nodded, still trying to wrap his head around everything. The war, the gate, the syndicate, and his own role in all of it. How had his life turned into this? One moment, he was just trying to survive, and now? Now he was the center of something that could change the course of history. As they boarded the ship, Serenia locked the hatch, and the small vessel took off into the sky. Through the viewport, Daniel saw the city below fading into the distance, the stars above him growing larger. The ship accelerated, cutting through the atmosphere. Headed toward the unknown, Serenia turned to him, her face serious. "We're going to need more than just your mark to get through this. The syndicate will stop at nothing to prevent us from reaching the gate. You need to be ready. We can't afford to hesitate." Daniel nodded, the weight of her words settling. On him, there was no turning back now. Whatever lay ahead, he was the only one who could stop it, let it destroy everything. The ship sped toward its destination, and the faint glow of the Gate of Echoes grew brighter on the horizon. The ship surged forward, cutting through the blackness of space as Daniel sat in the cockpit beside Serenia, his hands gripped tightly on the seat. The distant stars outside looked like pinpricks of light against the endless void, but in his mind, everything felt blurry and uncertain. The weight of Serenia's words pressed heavily on him. "You're the one who can end this war." But he wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was just a man who'd ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time, carrying a scar that tied him to something far bigger than he could have ever imagined. He had no idea how to stop the war if he even should. Serenia, focused on piloting the ship, didn't seem to notice his unease. Her face was set, her violet eyes sharp with determination as the ship's controls responded to her every command. Her hands moved fluidly, expertly navigating through the stars. But Daniel could sense the tension radiating from her. "We're almost there," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "The Gate of Echoes isn't far now." Daniel didn't reply. He couldn't shake the feeling that danger was closing in on them, no matter how far they flew. The syndicate wouldn't let them go this easily. They knew about the mark. They knew about him. And Serenia's words had only confirmed his fears. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about choosing a side in a war he hadn't even realized he was part of. As they approached the coordinates Serenia had set, Daniel's thoughts kept drifting back to the moment when Serenia had touched his scar. The way she had looked at him, like she knew exactly what he was. The way the mark had burned beneath her touch, almost like it was alive. What did it all mean? His thoughts were interrupted by the low hum of the ship's alarm. Serenia's sharp intake of breath told him everything he needed to know. "They've found us," she said, her voice tight. "The syndicate's ships are closing in." Daniel's pulse quickened. "What do we do?" "There's a hideout near the gate," Serenia said quickly, her eyes scanning the control panel. "I'll take us there, but we need to move fast. Once they catch up, we'll be sitting ducks." The ship lurched as Serenia punched in a course change, heading toward a cluster of asteroid debris that could provide cover. Daniel could see the distant silhouettes of Syndicate interceptors, their sleek forms darting toward them like hunting predators. "They won't stop," Serenia muttered under her breath. "We're running out of time." The ship swerved, barely avoiding a blast from one of the interceptors. The sound of the explosion vibrated through the hull, rattling the ship and throwing Daniel off balance. He gripped the armrests, heart pounding as Serenia pushed the ship into evasive maneuvers, cutting through the asteroid field. The Syndicate ships followed with precision, their weapons charging for another strike. "Stay down," Serenia barked, as another blast whizzed by, barely missing the ship's rear. "If they hit us in this debris field, we'll be torn apart." Daniel hunched lower, eyes wide as the ship dipped and rolled through the debris, the asteroids shooting by in blurs of gray and silver. He could hear the faint hum of the Syndicate ship's engines behind them, gaining ground as they cut through the field with expert skill. He glanced over at Serenia, whose face was a mask of focus. "How do you know all this?" he asked, his voice shaky. "How do you know the Syndicate's tactics? Where do you even come from?" She didn't answer right away. Her hands worked the controls expertly, making quick adjustments to the ship's trajectory as the enemy drew closer. "I've been on both sides of this war," she said, her voice quieter now. "I've seen the worst of it." Daniel opened his mouth to ask more, but the ship suddenly jolted again, a blast striking the right wing. Sparks flew from the damaged panel, and the ship shuddered violently. Serenia cursed under her breath and pulled the ship into a sharp dive, narrowly missing a massive asteroid that loomed in their path. "We've got to get out of here," she said urgently. "We can't keep outrunning them like this." "Where's the hideout?" Daniel asked, his voice rising in panic. "There's a cave system on the surface of the moon ahead. If we can land and hide, they won't be able to track us, but it's our last chance." Serenia punched the thrusters, sending the ship forward at breakneck speed. The Syndicate interceptors followed, not letting up. Daniel looked out the viewport, his heart sinking as the ships grew larger, their engines burning bright as they chased after them. He could see the lasers charging again, their deadly beams aimed directly at the ship. "We're almost there," Serenia yelled, her grip tightening on the controls. "Hold on." The ship lurched violently as another blast hit the left engine. Daniel felt his stomach drop as the ship veered off course. But Serenia quickly corrected, guiding them toward the moon's surface. They were close, so close. "Now," Serenia shouted. She twisted the ship into a sharp dive, heading straight for a narrow opening between two large craters on the moon's surface. The Syndicate ships followed, but as Serenia shot through the entrance, the cave's walls closed in around them, blocking the enemy ships from following. The ship's engines sputtered slightly, the damage beginning to take its toll, but Serenia guided them to a safe landing within the cave. The hum of the engines died down, leaving only the sound of heavy breathing. Daniel exhaled sharply, his body shaking with adrenaline. "We made it," he said, looking at Serenia. But there was no time to celebrate. The danger wasn't over yet. The Syndicate would be back. They would stop at nothing to find them. Serenia stood, turning to him with a solemn look. "We have to reach the gate now. It's our only chance to end this." Daniel nodded, his eyes burning with a mix of fear and resolve. The Syndicate would come for them, but this time they wouldn't run. This time, they would face whatever was waiting for them at the Gate of Echoes. The cave was silent except for the low hum of the ship's damaged systems. Daniel's hands still shook from the adrenaline, but his mind raced faster than his body could catch up. He couldn't understand everything that had happened. He'd barely had time to process the gravity of his scar and what it meant. But now, deep in an underground cave, his life had shifted in ways he couldn't imagine. Serenia didn't wait for him to catch his breath. She was already at the controls, securing the ship and checking the damage to the hull. The glow of her violet eyes was sharp, focused, a stark contrast to the weary look on Daniel's face. She seemed unaffected by the near-death chase, but Daniel couldn't shake the fear settling in his chest. "We're safer now," Serenia said, her voice low. "But we don't have much time. The Syndicate won't stop hunting us." Daniel turned his attention to her, his voice shaky. "Why are they after me? What's the gate, and why does it matter?" Serenia paused, her fingers hovering over the control panel, then slowly turned to face him. Her expression softened, but there was something heavy in her eyes. "The Gate of Echoes is the key to ending the war, Daniel. But only someone marked with the crest of Orath can open it. And that someone is you." Daniel blinked, trying to understand. "The mark? You mean this scar?" He pulled back the cloth covering his hand and showed her the faint scar on his palm, the glow still lingering from when he had used it earlier. "What does this scar even mean?" Serenia stepped closer, her eyes studying his hand as if it held the answers to 1,000 questions. "The crest of Orath is an ancient mark created by the first rulers of my people. The Oracle placed it on the one who would be chosen to end the war, the one who could unlock the Gate of Echoes." Her voice was soft but filled with weight. "The weapon behind that gate is something so powerful it can decide the fate of entire worlds. The Syndicate knows this. They're after the power hidden within the gate, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it." Daniel swallowed hard. "I don't know anything about this. I don't even understand what's going on." Serenia took a deep breath, her face serious. "I know, but now you're the only one who can stop them. The Syndicate believes they can control the weapon behind the gate. If they succeed, they'll turn it on my people and yours, and the rest of the galaxy will fall under their control." Daniel shook his head, still processing. He was just a human one who had survived an ambush, a battle, and weeks on the run. Now, somehow, he was tied to the fate of entire civilizations. It didn't make sense. But Serenia's unwavering gaze left no room for doubt. She believed in him, and for the first time, he felt like he was part of something bigger than just surviving. "How do I even open it?" he asked, still unsure if he wanted to know the answer. Serenia took a step closer, her voice quiet. "The gate responds to the one with the mark. Only you can activate it. But it's not just about unlocking, it's about controlling it. The weapon behind it could change everything. The Syndicate wants that control. And if we don't act fast, they'll take it before we even have a chance." The gravity of her words hit him. He wasn't just being hunted because of the scar. He was being hunted because the Syndicate believed he could unlock the power to wipe out entire planets. Daniel's gaze flickered to the entrance of the cave, where the distant sound of engines could still be heard in the air. The Syndicate ships were still searching for them, and there was no doubt they would find the hidden cave sooner or later. But he couldn't turn back now. There was a larger war at stake, and he had a choice to make: face the unknown or let the Syndicate win. "Where's the gate?" Daniel asked, his voice steady now. Serenia's eyes softened. "It's close. Just beyond the cliffs, on the other side of the moon. But the path is dangerous. The Syndicate has already set up patrols. We'll have to fight our way through." Daniel's grip tightened around the handle of his blaster. He wasn't a soldier, but he knew how to survive. And right now, survival meant taking the fight to the Syndicate. "I'm ready," he said, meeting Serenia's gaze. Her expression softened, but the intensity in her eyes remained. "We'll have to move quickly. There's no time to waste." The two of them exited the ship and made their way through the cave's narrow tunnels, the sound of distant gunfire echoing faintly through the walls. They were deep in enemy territory now, but Daniel couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose growing inside him. The weight of the scar had been heavy for so long, but now felt like a key to something that could end the war. Something that could stop the Syndicate from taking everything. They emerged from the cave into the cold, open moonlight. The landscape was barren, a wasteland of rocks and dust, but in the distance, Daniel could see the faint glow of the gate's entrance. It was there, waiting for them. But as they approached, the sound of engines roared from behind them, and a shadow passed over the moon's surface. Syndicate dropships. They were closing in. "We don't have much time," Serenia said urgently. "They found us." Daniel's heart raced. He knew what was at stake. There was no turning back now. He followed Serenia toward the gate, his mind set on one thing: stopping the Syndicate before they could unlock the weapon that could destroy everything. The moon's surface was barren, nothing but rocky terrain and dust stretching out into the endless dark of space. Daniel's boots crunched softly against the ground as he followed Serenia toward the glowing entrance of the gate. But with every step they took, the sound of engines grew louder, the growl of Syndicate ships unmistakable. The enemy was closing in. "We need to hurry," Serenia muttered, her voice barely audible over the wind. She glanced over her shoulder, her eyes narrowing as the Syndicate dropships appeared over the horizon, their dark silhouettes cutting across the moon's pale light. Daniel's heart raced. The gate was so close. He could almost feel it, the energy pulsing from the structure, beckoning him. But the Syndicate, those ruthless mercenaries, would never let them reach it. Not without a fight. "They won't stop until they have us," Daniel said, his voice tight. Serenia's lips tightened into a grim line. "They won't get the chance." She quickened her pace, moving with a fluid grace that Daniel couldn't help but admire. He followed her, pulling out his blaster, scanning the area. The Syndicate dropships descended slowly, their engines roaring as they touched down 100 meters away. The first soldiers began to disembark, heavily armored and carrying advance weaponry. "They're coming in fast," Daniel said, his grip tightening around his blaster. Serenia didn't break stride. "We can't stop now. We reach the gate, or we die trying." The sound of approaching boots echoed behind them, and Daniel spun around, firing a shot that narrowly missed a Syndicate soldier. The blast sent the soldier diving for cover, but more were coming, and the enemy wasn't going to make it easy. "We're almost there," Serenia said through gritted teeth, her hand pulling out a glowing energy blade from her side. "Them off for as long as you can." She sprinted ahead, her blade humming to life, and with a single swift motion, she took down the first Syndicate soldier who rushed toward her. The soldier's body crumpled to the ground, his armor sizzling where the blade had sliced through it. Daniel wasn't far behind, covering her with his blaster. His aim was steady as he fired at the advancing troops, his shots striking true, taking down one soldier after another. But it wasn't enough. There were too many of them, and they were closing in fast. "They'll overwhelm us if we stay here," Daniel shouted. Serenia didn't answer. Instead, she gestured toward the gate, the entrance looming closer. "We need to get inside. Once we're there, we can hold them off." Daniel glanced back. The Syndicate soldiers were regrouping, taking cover behind the rocky outcroppings as they pushed forward. He and Serenia were running out of time. "Keep moving," Daniel yelled, sprinting alongside her. The gate was just ahead, its massive stone arch glowing faintly with energy. He could feel the pull of it, the mark on his hand burning with each step. But the closer they got, the more dangerous it became. Another blast narrowly missed Daniel's head, and he ducked instinctively, but Serenia didn't flinch. She kept running, her focus solely on the gate. They were so close now, too. Close to stop. The Syndicate soldiers were no more than 30 meters away, closing in fast. Now, Serenia shouted, and with one final burst of speed, they reached the entrance of the gate. The moment Daniel crossed the threshold, the atmosphere around them shifted. The air seemed to hum with power, and the gate's runes flashed brighter, responding to his presence. The scar on his hand pulsed in time with the gate's glow, and for the first time, Daniel felt the weight of his role in this war. He wasn't just running anymore. He was here to make a choice. But before he could fully comprehend the shift, the Syndicate soldiers arrived, opening fire from all sides. The entrance was narrow, and the stone walls of the gate provided little cover, but Serenia stood firm, blocking the path with her energy blade. "Get inside," she ordered, her voice commanding. Daniel hesitated for a moment, then turned toward the heart of the gate. He could see it now, the glowing center of the archway, a swirling vortex of light. The power was within his reach, but so were the Syndicate soldiers. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to act. He stepped forward, his hand raised, the scar burning hot against his skin. The gate responded instantly. The light around the archway intensified, the runes along its surface glowing brightly as if recognizing the mark on his hand. The power surged through him, and for a moment, he felt a connection to the ancient forces contained within the gate. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the air crackled with energy. Daniel closed his eyes, focusing all his will on the gate. He didn't know how he was doing it, but somehow he was controlling it. The gate was responding to him, responding to the mark. Serenia's voice cut through the chaos. "The weapon is inside? The Syndicate can't get it." Daniel's heart pounded. The energy inside the gate was overwhelming, but he had no choice. He pushed further, letting the power flow through him, directing it toward the Syndicate soldiers. They stopped firing, stunned by the sudden surge of energy. The air around them crackled, and Daniel felt the weight of the decision. This was it. The gate had been unlocked, but what would come through? The weapon that could end the war or the destruction of everything he knew. The air hummed with energy as Daniel stood before the gate, his hand raised and glowing with the power of the scar. The runes carved into the archway flared brighter, and the space around him seemed to warp as if the very fabric of reality was bending to his will. The Syndicate soldiers stopped in their tracks, frozen by the overwhelming force that surged from the gate. The weapon was awakening, and Daniel felt the weight of it, the weight of what he had just unleashed. Serenia stood beside him, her energy blade still crackling in her hand, but she didn't move. Her violet eyes were fixed on the swirling vortex inside the gate. It was opening wider now, revealing a glowing, pulsing light at its center. The power was both beautiful and terrifying, and Daniel could feel it vibrating through his entire body as though it was calling to him. "What is this?" Daniel whispered, unable to tear his gaze away from the gate. "The Gate of Echoes," Serenia said softly, her voice almost reverent. "It was built to hold the greatest weapon our people have ever known. It's a force of destruction, and salvation." She glanced at him, her expression serious. "You're the one who can control it, Daniel. The mark on your hand. It's the key to unlocking the power. But now you must decide, will you use it to end the war, or will you close it forever?" Daniel's heart raced. He had no idea what kind of power lay inside the gate, but he could feel it pulsing through him. He could sense the weapon waiting just beyond the glowing light. It was as if the gate itself was alive, and it was waiting for him to make a choice. The Syndicate soldiers were closing in again, but they seemed hesitant, unsure of what to do. With the energy swirling around them, Daniel glanced over at Serenia, who met his gaze with a solemn look. The Syndicate would stop at nothing to control the gate. They would destroy everything in their path if it meant gaining that power. "The gate is meant to end the war," Serenia said, her voice low. "It can destroy the Syndicate, but it can also destroy everything else. the power behind it. It's not just a weapon. It's a force that could change everything. Daniel. He felt his mind racing as the light from the gate intensified, the swirling vortex growing larger. He could see visions flashes of a war-torn world, of planets being torn apart by fire and destruction. He saw the Syndicate's fleets, there. Weapons aimed at the helpless populations, their armies crushing anything that stood in their way. And in the center of it all, the gate was the source of the chaos. The power of the gate was overwhelming. But it wasn't just destructive. Daniel could feel a thread of hope woven into the chaos. He could sense the possibility of peace, of ending the war for good. But to do that, he would have to make a choice, one that could change the fate of millions. As the Syndicate soldiers advance, their weapons raised, Daniel turned back to the gate. His hand, still glowing, trembled as he reached out toward the swirling light. The scar on his palm burned brighter, as if the gate recognized him as the one who could control it. Daniel, don't do this, Serenia said, her voice urgent. You don't know what will happen when you open it fully. The weapon, it's not just a tool. It has a mind of its own. Daniel looked at her, then back at the gate. The choice was in his hands. The power of the gate could bring peace, but it could also be the end of everything. He could use it to destroy the Syndicate, but would that make him just like them? Would he become the very thing he was fighting against? He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, trying to steady himself. The power of the gate surged through him. Again, and for a moment, he felt the weight of the decision on his shoulders. He wasn't just deciding the fate of the war, he was deciding the fate of everything. He opened his eyes and made his choice. He stepped forward, his hand reaching out once again. But this time, he wasn't just unlocking the power. He was controlling it. The scar on his hand flared brightly as he focused his energy on the gate. No, Serenia shouted, but it was too late. The light from the gate exploded outward, washing over everything in its path. The Syndicate soldiers were thrown back, their weapons knocked from their hands as the power of the gate surged through them. The ground trembled beneath Daniel's feet, and the entire landscape seemed to shift as the energy spread. The gate opened wider, revealing what lay beyond. At first, there was nothing, just an empty void. But then, something began to materialize from the darkness. A figure, tall and powerful, with glowing eyes and an aura of raw energy. It was the weapon the gate had held for centuries. And it was coming through. Serenia stepped forward, her face pale. "What have you done?" she whispered, her voice filled with dread. Daniel didn't answer. He watched as the figure stepped fully into the light, its form solidifying, taking shape. It was a being of pure energy, its body crackling with power. Its eyes locked onto Daniel, and for a moment, everything seemed to stop. The power of the gate was now in his hands, and the fate of the galaxy rested on what he did next. The gate's energy was overwhelming, a torrent of light that seemed to consume everything around it. Daniel stood frozen in front of it, the scar on his hand burning hotter than ever. It was as if the gate itself was calling to him, urging him to unlock its full potential. The air crackled with raw power, vibrating through the ground beneath his feet, and he could feel it coursing through his veins, urging him to release it all. The figure that had emerged from the Gatine entity, made of swirling energy, its form shimmering with every color of the cosmos, stood before him, its presence almost suffocating. Its glowing eyes fixed on him, radiating an ancient power that was both beautiful and terrifying. The air around it warped, bending under the weight of its power. It was everything Daniel had feared, a weapon unlike anything he had ever imagined. Serenia's voice broke through the intensity of the moment, sharp and urgent. "Daniel, you have to stop it. You don't understand what this weapon can do. It has a mind of its own. It will destroy everything." Daniel's heart raced as he took a step back, but the pull of the gate was too strong. The scar on his hand burned brighter, and for a moment he felt himself becoming part of the energy, the power of the gate filling him from within. The being before him was waiting for him to make a decision. A decision that would change everything. Serenia was right. The weapon was a force of destruction. If unleashed, it would burn through the syndicate and everyone else in its path. But was it the right choice? Could he control it? Could anyone? The figure before him took a slow step forward, its glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. He could feel the weight of its gaze, like it was assessing him, waiting for him to embrace the power. The gate pulsed again, its energy rising, and Daniel felt the weapon calling to him, promising to end the war in an instant. For a split second, the thought was tempting. To use the power, to crush the syndicate once and for all, to end the destruction that had torn so many lives apart. But then he remembered the faces of those who had fallen, the ones he had fought to protect. He couldn't do it. He couldn't become the thing he was fighting against. He closed his eyes, steadying his breath. The weight of the decision was crushing. Every part of him wanted to give in to release the full power of the gate and stop the war once and for all. But a deeper part of him knew that power came at a cost. He had to stop the weapon from consuming everything. "I won't let it destroy everything," he whispered to himself, his voice steady despite the overwhelming energy around him. He could feel the power like a roaring storm inside him. But he fought against it, focusing on the choice he had to make. "Daniel," Serenia called again, her voice filled with urgency. But there was a note of hope in it now, too. She knew. He could do this. You can control it. You have to control it. He opened his eyes and looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. She was trusting him, believing that he could make the right choice. He couldn't betray that trust. He couldn't betray the lives of those who depended on him. With a deep breath, Daniel stepped forward, closing the distance between him and the gate. The scar on his hand flared once again, a burning light that filled the air around them. But this time, Daniel wasn't reaching out to unlock the power. This time, he was pulling it back. He was stopping it. He focused all his will on the energy, on the weapon that lay hidden behind the gate, and he pushed it back. The gate responded immediately. The energy began to flicker, the light dimming and fading as Daniel concentrated, pulling the power back. Inside the structure, the figure before him shuddered, its form flickering as the energy was drawn back into the gate. The sound of its crackling power filled the air, like a storm trying to escape its containment. But Daniel didn't let go. Serenia stepped closer, watching him with a mixture of awe and fear. "You're doing it," she whispered. "You're stopping it." Daniel's hand trembled, but he held firm. The power of the gate was immense, but he was stronger. He had to be. The light of the gate flickered once more, and then, with a final, resounding hum, it collapsed into nothingness. The energy evaporated, leaving the gate silent and still. The being that had emerged from it disappeared, its energy consumed and sealed away. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel's breath came in ragged gasps as he lowered his hand, the scar now nothing more than a faint mark on his skin. The power had faded, leaving only the quiet echo of its presence. The gate was sealed. The weapon was gone. Serenia stepped forward, her hand gently resting on his shoulder. "You did it," she said, her voice soft but filled with reverence. "You stopped it. You stopped the war." Daniel nodded slowly, his body exhausted, but his mind clearer than ever. The war wasn't over, not yet, but the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy had been sealed away. He'd made the right choice, and that was all that mattered. The syndicate soldiers, who had been watching in stunned silence, began to retreat, realizing they had lost. The threat was over. Daniel had made the decision that would change everything. The war was far from over. But now there was hope. Serena looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and something more admiration. You chose to protect life. That is why you were the one marked. You didn't give in to the power. Daniel looked out at the horizon, the moon's surface now bathed in a soft light. The battle had been won, but the war would continue. Still, for the first time in a long time, he felt like he had made the right choice, the right path. And as he turned to Serena, he knew they were ready to face whatever came next, together.